All right, guys, welcome to Stronghold Breaker week number 6. So you'll notice I'm hand holding the mic today instead of the microphone just being right here in front of me. And the reason why is we went and interviewed a pastor yesterday. Well, I guess I didn't interview him. I really just sat down and had a conversation with him, and it was awesome. This dude, well, I don't want to get into all of that, but totally different beliefs than what a lot of people have. And it was a really good conversation. But in the process, somewhere the clamp that holds the mic in place is missing. I don't know where it is, probably buried in my truck somewhere. So with that, I just decided to go with the handheld today. But regardless, so last week we talked about how pornography affects all 5 columns and how each column specifically is affected. And one thing that we talked about specifically with that was dopamine and how dopamine is affected by pornography, and the way in which it's affected changes our behavior and makes everyday things and even long-term things less rewarding. They're not nearly as rewarding. So got a couple of different things for you today. So got a couple of things. If you really want to free yourself from pornography, you have to desexualize your brain. Now, we are inherently sexual creatures, and we are men. We are young men. And the thing is young men are actually meant to have high levels of testosterone and to have a high sex drive. But having a high sex drive and battling lust every day are not the same thing. Because you see, sex drive is more than just, I don't really like this word, but I'm going to use it. It's more than just horniness. It's more than just being like turned on. It is... our sex drive has to do with flirtation. It's not a bad thing at all. It's not something that we have to diminish and reduce until we're married. Well, no, the thing that propels you to be attracted to a girl is your sex drive. The thing that attracted me to my wife was sex drive. The thing that made me flirt with her was sex drive. The thing that made me take her on dates and everything that have to do with a relationship, it's in part the sex drive that God put in us. So you have to differentiate. It's not that you're wanting to reduce your sex drive. It's that you're wanting to desexualize your brain. So that way your brain is no longer associating all things with sex or all pleasurable things, or that the most pleasurable thing is sex, where it puts sex way up here on a pedestal. And so pornography plays into this when it comes to dopamine and how we use pornography as a means to cope with things that are typically unrelated. So in order to desexualize your brain, if there's a couple of practical things that I'm going to give you. So the first one is you have to stop avoiding reality. Okay, so I've got my notes right here. So if you see me looking down a little bit, that's why. But the reason you keep falling into temptation is not just about sexual desire. It's actually about an escape. Now, we've talked about this a couple times where I said you're choosing porn as the solution to the problem. Porn isn't the problem. It's the solution that you're choosing to the problem. And so you have a legitimate need that you're filling with an illegitimate means. And that's what we do with all sin, is we meet legitimate needs with illegitimate means. So you have to stop avoiding reality. Lust, porn, junk food, any of them, but we're going to stick primarily with porn. It's cheap dopamine, gentlemen. It's your brain's way, it's your way of avoiding stress, discomfort, boredom, or even deeper issues. We use it to avoid things. And so that's why it may even pop up at random times. We are feeling stuff that we don't want to feel, and we want a way out. And so dopamine is what allows for us to feel a respite from those things, especially from stress. So anxious people tend to wrestle with pornography more than people who tend to not be anxious. And the reason why is we are using pornography to solve the problem of stress and anxiety. So you're feeling something you don't want to feel. Maybe you're at work and you're stressed out about a project or something like that. And so immediately your brain goes to pornography or a past sexual experience or any of these other number of things. And it does that because it's looking for a way out. Okay, so you're choosing an illegitimate means to fill a legitimate need. You legitimately need to not feel the stress, but you're choosing pornography to be the means. So it's not just that you're choosing pornography, you're choosing cheap dopamine. So in order to get rid of cheap dopamine, we have to bring meaningful things into our lives. And so in order to bring meaningful things into our lives, we have to stop avoiding reality. What are you really anxious about, bro? What are you really dealing with? And so whenever the temptation to view pornography arises, this is just like what I said a couple weeks ago. You have to ask yourself, what problem am I trying to solve right now? And you may think, I don't really have a problem to solve right now. Like, I don't really feel anything. I don't have a problem to solve right now. Well, I can tell you what that problem probably is, and it leads me into my second point. You need to get some freaking excitement in your life. I know that's kind of crazy, but you need to get some real excitement in your life. So most men relapse with pornography because their lives are boring. And I don't hate that. I don't disrespect that. It's actually not your fault, gentlemen. You and me were made to explore. We were made to conquer. We were made to be adventurous. I mean, I love the idea of being one of the first people to get to the Americas. I mean, like ever, not even just the settlers who came over to settle America, but even like before the Indians came. Like, how awesome would it be to be the first person to step foot on the entire continent of North America or South America? We were made to explore and to conquer and to build and to strive and to achieve. And our modern day and age, gentlemen, it's so safe. And listen, I'm grateful for it. I wouldn't change it, but it's so safe and it's so comfortable that we no longer do things that are exciting or even risky. So I'm not saying go skydiving, though something like that would certainly be a way to bring some excitement into your life. What I am saying is you need to do things outside of your comfort zone. You need to go have some fun. You need to have some regular things that you go and do with your friends. And if you don't have any friends, you need to find ways to go make friends. And obviously, we could talk about this whole thing for 3 hours because it's deep. How to make friends, how to find those good friends, so on and so forth. But these are just principles. And the principle is you need to get some excitement in your life. It means you don't like your life or elements of your life, and you're using pornography to escape it. Why? Not because you're a bad person, but it's because pornography offers cheap dopamine. And gentlemen, remember, dopamine is the reward chemical. It makes you feel a sense of accomplishment. And now we're getting deep into the weeds here. God made sex to be where whether we want to, in our egalitarian society, admit this is true or not, it doesn't matter. God made the man to, this is very rough for me to say. It's going to come out rough, so I need you to really listen to how I explain it. He made the man to conquer the woman. So literally in sex, the woman is on her back and she is being penetrated. The man does the penetrating. The woman receives, the man gives. The man gives something, she receives something. The woman submits to the man imposes over the woman. Now, these are obviously terms that could be misinterpreted, but honestly, I don't even care about that because anybody who knows me knows exactly what I mean with this. So you are meant to have that rush of dopamine when you have sex with your wife because it's a reminder of the fact that you are a conqueror. Not that the point of sleeping with a woman is to conquer, but it's to remind you that this woman loves you and she submits to you, and it's wonderful. And that's God ordained. He is the one who created that. And what pornography does is it hijacks that God created system and makes your brain feel the shortcut to that same dopamine without the actual woman who loves you there. That's the problem. So it's quick, cheap dopamine to make you feel as if you are somebody who has conquered when you haven't. And so what does this do? Well, you know that you haven't conquered. Your subconscious mind knows that. And so what it does is it makes you feel like a loser, because it's like these levels of dopamine aren't producing the levels that we need. So we need to reduce the satisfaction that's felt with that level of dopamine to drive him to do more. So porn becomes less fulfilling. And the other things in life that also produce dopamine, such as working out and stuff like that, they start to feel less rewarding the more and more we consume porn. So you have to get some real excitement in your life. If life sucks, it makes sense that you're chasing artificial highs. Start building a life worth living, one where you don't need to fake pleasure to fill the void, but instead you fill it with genuine pleasure. Hanging out with friends, doing cool stuff, going wakeboarding, going skateboarding, running a marathon, all sorts of things. Spice up your life with fun stuff. You're a young man, you're strong, the world is wide open. There's so many opportunities. Chase some. Pick up a new skill, pursue a passion, push yourself physically. So there's one guy I know, he started a side business where he's detailing cars, and he's setting goals for himself. I'll do one car, I'll do two cars, and I'll do some this weekend. He started something on the side, maybe not perhaps because he's dealing with any particular issue, but because he wants to do something else. He wants some excitement. He wants a new project, a new thing, a new passion. And so with that, he is filling, instead of getting cheap dopamine, he's getting real, genuine dopamine from real world achievement. So that's what we want to do, is get real excitement in our life. So the third one is cut out thirsty triggers. So if you have done the Sons of Strength protocol, the SOS protocol, I touch on this, and one of it is titled exactly this. I think it's protocol number 3, is cut out thirsty triggers. So you wouldn't keep a bottle of whiskey on your desk if you were trying to quit drinking. You also wouldn't keep any alcohol in the house if you were trying to quit drinking. And similarly, you wouldn't go to the bar with your friends if you were trying to quit drinking. So why do you keep lust triggers in your environment, just trusting that you'll be strong enough to deal with them? So here's what you need to do. Unfollow all thirst traps on social media. I don't care if it's a model. I don't care if it's your best friend from high school who, she's a really good girl and I don't like feeling this way towards her, but sometimes she posts something where her skirt's a little revealing, and 9 times out of 10, I'm strong enough, but 1 time out of 10, sometimes I stumble. Doesn't matter. Unfreaking follow. How badly do you want to be free of this? And if you don't, let's say it is your best friend. Well, she don't have to know that you unfollowed her. You can just mute her. I've done that. Gentlemen, after I got married, you know how many girls on my social media I had to mute or unfollow? A ton. A ton. And there were some where I'm sitting there going, I don't want to feel this type of attraction towards you. And so guess what? Instead of thinking, well, I'll just kind of play it by ear. No, mute. And so there's a ton that I still have muted or I have unfollowed to this day, and I don't let that stuff back in my feed. The other thing that you need to do is anytime something does pop up that you don't like, not interested. Select not interested. So all that's in the SOS protocol on how to cut out thirsty triggers, but that's what you need to do, is cut out thirsty triggers. Stop lingering around or on content that you know is tempting you, and set boundaries for your phone. So don't bring your bone. Definitely don't do that. That's a fantastic segue. Don't bring your phone to bed, and limit social media. I know one guy, he limits his social media to 20 minutes a day. For me personally, that doesn't work. I need a little bit more than 20 minutes, but set it to an hour. Set it to where it shuts off at 8 p.m., something like that. When at one phase in life, I left my phone in the living room, and I had an alarm clock. I left my phone in the living room. I'm like, there is nothing in the world that needs me that bad. So I would leave my phone in the living room and I'd sleep with the alarm clock. So that's something worth doing too, to help break the cycle so you can establish true, like real life dopamine to help lessen the draw of the cheap dopamine. So number 4, stop chasing empty dopamine calories. So we've already kind of hit on this, but your brain has been hijacked by easy dopamine. Scrolling, gaming, porn, junk food. You're addicted to hits of pleasure without the effort. Start working for your rewards. Earn a great body, develop real self-confidence, and achieve financial independence. So some of us we already have, some of us we haven't done that yet, but you need to start working towards real things that really matter. You need to replace the cheap dopamine with real dopamine. So I mentioned you need to get some excitement in your life. Run a marathon, do this, do that, start a side business. Well, what you also need to do is find meaningful, true meaningful things in life and replace those. Because dopamine is not just the reward chemical. That is a common misconception. Dopamine is also the chemical that makes you feel a sense of drive toward a goal. So anybody who has worked out for any period of time, you know that once you really get in the groove of working out, when you've been going for a few weeks, it excites you to the point where you're sitting there some days and you're sitting there going, God, I can't wait to hit chest tomorrow. Yeah, you weren't saying that in the very beginning, because in the very beginning, you didn't have that dopaminergic drive yet. Now you do. Now you do have a dopaminergic drive. In fact, there is a direct correlation between those who fall in love with lifting weights and working out and a decreasing usage in pornography. Why? Because they have started to experience real dopamine and not cheap dopamine. It feels way more rewarding and filling to go lift weights and feel the sense of accomplishment. So the dopamine to feel the drive, the dopamine that makes you want to do something that sucks, that's dopamine. And then the sense of achievement when you do it, that's dopamine. That feels better than the cheap dopamine. So you need to stop chasing empty dopamine calories and instead real dopamine, which is workout, read, start a new project, learn, expand your wisdom, go and meet people, meet girls, invite girls out on dates, take them out on dates, do things that bring real dopamine instead of the cheap dopamine. So number 5, I got 2 more. Number 5 is use technology to your advantage. So technology could be something that could be very detrimental to us. Obviously, in the old days, before magazines, well, there wasn't really such thing as porn. It was all imagination, or if you wanted to fornicate or something like that, you would literally have to go find a girl, pursue the girl, try to bed the girl, and then you're dealing with all the guilt and so on and so forth. And then in the day and the age of kind of our fathers, our dads, it was magazines. And so the thing is, you would have to get the magazine, hide the magazine, take the magazine to your room, find a picture that you like, and nobody was really naked and all that other type of stuff. There was so much effort that there was a huge barrier to entry. Now, even just a little bit turned on, and immediately within seconds, I can see naked women. And the thing is 12 and 13-year-old me saw more beautiful women on my phone than most men had ever seen in their lifetime because of pornography. And that is a tragedy. It's a tragedy. So that's the downside of technology. The plus side of technology is there's a lot of things that you and me can use to our advantage. So the biggest one that I use is do not disturb or airplane mode. So I was watching a video recently, and the guy was actually talking about this very same topic about desexualizing the brain. And he was talking about just his experience and some things that he has done. And he said that he was working, and he noticed that whenever he took his work on the plane, he obviously had to put his laptop in airplane mode, and so he did, and he would type out the responses to all the emails, and then once they landed and got internet again, he would send all of the emails. And he noticed he got more work done on plane flights than any other time. And the reason why is because he cut out distractions using airplane mode. So one of the ways in which you and me can combat pornography is to use airplane mode or do not disturb at night or during deep work. So when you are trying to do stuff that's meaningful, like we just talked about, put your phone on do not disturb while you read your book. Put your phone on do not disturb whenever you're trying to do these things that bring the long-term, good, healthy dopamine, the real dopamine and not the cheap dopamine. And more importantly, at nighttime, I know some of us, we want to be in contact. What if my mom calls? What if, somebody calls and I need them? Well, that is something that's fair, but consider putting your phone on airplane mode at night. So that way you won't use it. And you may be sitting there thinking, oh, what if I, switch it to I could just switch it right off of airplane mode. Well, yeah, but you won't be using your phone if you get in the habit of putting it on airplane mode. It'll suck for about 2 nights, maybe 3. And then you'll start getting in the habit of reading and getting that long-term dopamine, and it'll feel way better. So use that. Do not disturb and airplane mode are great for doing the deep work to replace. As for actually putting up blocks, there is something I highly recommend called Covenant Eyes, and you can install it on everything, your iPad, your iPhone, all of it. You can put it on everything, and what it does is it monitors your web activity, and if it picks up adult websites or adult photos or anything like that, here's what it does. It notifies the accountability partner that you've chosen. So once upon a time, I was a youth pastor at a church, and so I decided to use Covenant Eyes as an extra barrier for me. And you know who I made my accountability partner? The senior pastor. So you bet, it was a little frustrating at times, but it definitely helped me to not view pornography because I don't want the senior pastor seeing these things that I'm looking at. I don't want him to know that I stumbled. So similarly for you, you can install it on your phone, on your iPad, on your Mac, any computer. You can install Covenant Eyes, and it is paid. I think it's, last I checked, the last time I used it was 2020, maybe 2021, and it was like $129 a year. It's probably, I'm sure it's gone up since then, but I am certainly willing to be your accountability partner, or you can choose somebody that you may be more comfortable with, but Accountability Eyes is a great one to help keep adult content off of your phone, to help cut that cycle of addiction. So lastly, and then obviously setting screen limits and stuff like that, that's also really important too. The best one that I can recommend is just set a time for you to be done with your phone for the day. Make it 9 o'clock, make it 8 o'clock, whatever time you typically go to bed, maybe 2 hours beforehand. Just set that time. Just do it. Okay. That's a great way to help keep yourself from using pornography, especially right before bed, is just keep that cheap dopamine away from you. All right. So lastly, we have to study the biblical understanding of sex. It's that simple. So God created sex as something powerful and holy. So study Proverbs 5, which we've already done this month at the time of me recording this. Study 1 Corinthians 6. Study Matthew 5, verses 27 through 30. And then read Song of Solomon. Truly, Song of Solomon is very erotic. And it's right in the middle of Scripture. And it shows you the beautiful design that God has for marriage. God intends for exactly everything you read in Song of Solomon for you to have that type of sexual flirtation and joy between you and your wife, or if you're not married yet, for your future wife. He intends that for you. And when we understand God's design of sex, it helps us resist the enemy's counterfeit of sex. Because like I've said earlier in this course, I can't remember which week, none of the sex that I had before I got married even comes close or compares to the sex that I've had in marriage, because the counterfeit never measures up to the real thing. That soul connection, that spiritual connection between you and your wife is locked for people who are not married. They do not have access to it because Scripture says what God has brought together, let no man separate. God brings the husband and the wife together in that deepest union. And for people who are not married, whether it be pornography, especially pornography, but even sex outside of marriage, even with the girl that you've been with for 10 years, that deepest level of intimacy is still locked to those who are not married. It does not come close. So lust loses power when you see it for what it really is, a distorted version of something sacred. So we have to deal with going all the way back. I'll just give a brief synopsis. Stop avoiding reality. Deal with the things that are actually causing you to run to porn as the solution. Whenever something pops up that you don't like, you're turning to pornography to solve that problem instead of solving the problem. So stop avoiding reality. Number 2, get some real excitement in your life. Do stuff that's exciting. Chase things that are real. We turn to pornography because it's cheap dopamine, because our life is boring and we don't like our life or we don't like ourselves. So we turn to cheap dopamine real quick. It's like junk food. So instead, work on yourself, work on your life, pursue things that are meaningful. Number 3, cut out thirsty triggers. Cut out all those things that trigger lust for you. Unfollow every single girl that you can possibly fathom causing you to slip into temptation, no matter who she is. And number 4, stop chasing empty dopamine calories. So stop chasing empty dopamine calories with pornography and instead replace it with things that are meaningful. Read a book, work out, which a lot of us do work out. So keep working out. Maybe start going for runs now. Start running consistently. Do things that bring long-term dopamine. Number 5, use tech to your advantage. Airplane mode, do not disturb, covenant eyes, and screen limits. And number 6, study the biblical understanding of sex. Proverbs 5, 1 Corinthians 6, Matthew 5, 27 through 30. So everything that I've read, you guys, I will put in the notes for this week. I am extending Stronghold Breaker by 2 weeks because we still have just a few more things that we need to get into. So this is week 6. We will have week 7 next week and week 8 the following week. And I hope all of this has been greatly beneficial for you. And I hope that you come back around next week as we continue to dive deep and fully flesh all this stuff out. Love you guys, and I'm proud of you. Keep standing strong.